Good evening, I'm Jeff Koinange, and this is Jeff Koinange Live. And you know, if it's Wednesday, it's all about politics, and more politics. Who better to have on the bench than a gentleman who literally comes back to Kenya once a year? An honor and a pleasure to have this man. But first, a few weeks ago, someone else came on the show and really abused my guest today, and we have something we call a right of reply, which is what we're doing today, and talking about the state of the nation, insecurity, corruption, you name it, an up-to-date version. He sits pretty far away, across the pond, if you will, in a place called Buffalo, New York. He's actually the dean of the School of Law at SUNY in Buffalo, New York. He's also the chairman of the Kenya Human Rights Commission. He writes a weekly column in the Sunday Standard, and a lot of you, I'm sure, catch it and comment on it. A lot of you have been writing on Twitter most of today, and from the tweets that I've gotten, you both love him and loathe him in equal measure. He's in town. He's on the bench. He's going to talk, and we're going to ask him all kinds of questions. Start tweeting. His Twitter handle is at Makau Mutua. Mine is at Koinange Jeff. So the hashtag we're using tonight is Makau Mutua on JKL. Try that, Makau Mutua on JKL. Tweet that, and we'll read your tweets throughout the show. Let's get started. Sit back. He's back. Professor.
Hey, how are you doing, my brother?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Good
nice
to see
tie.
you. Thank you so much.
Nice
Thank
socks.
you so much. Yeah, well, my wife knows how to dress me. I just wear the clothes. She buys them.
Yeah. And you know, you just threw that my wife because a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Your friend.
Yes.
David Matanga came on the show and made some claims.
Yes.
Let's get that out of the way right away.
What claims did he make?
He said you were gay.
Well, you know, it would be inappropriate for me to be mad at a person such as Matanga. I think the man is looking for love wherever he can find it.
Yes.
You know,
yeah.
And looking for attention. You know, and so I think some of those statements that he makes, which have no basis, in fact, should be treated with the contempt with which they deserve.
Do you think we give him too much airtime?
I think that, and I actually tweeted. I sent you, I think, a Twitter message, but I also tweeted directly and warned you about having on this hallowed show. After all, you are the great Jeff Koinange. How could you sit next to someone like Matanga?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's not acceptable. You should never do it again.
Ever.
Ever.
He should be banned.
He should be banned from this show.
When he was on the show, and you were watching from Rome, right? Where you've been for the last year sabbatical.
I was watching from Rome.
You were watching.
Yes.
And you were, for lack of better, you were pissed. You were angry.
No, I was not really pissed. I was amused. It is not possible for me to be pissed off at statements which have no basis in fact. I mean, people can say all kinds of things, and people say all kinds of things. But you know, unless people are talking about you, my brother, you ain't doing nothing.
This is true.
This is true.
Okay. There's a couple of statements you have made in the past that people have been tweeting all day.
Yes.
Let's start with the first one.
Yes.
You said you will never, ever recognize President Uhuru Kenyatta as president.
You know, Jeff, you are a troublemaker. You know, I mean, no wonder that you've been, you have a legal case, pending somewhere.
Oh, no.
But let me just say this
Yes.
to you. You know, I told you in I think 2013, and I think earlier than that, I believe in 2012, that the cases at the International Criminal Court that Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Ruto were facing were very, very serious matters. My organization, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, was involved in suing to stop Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Ruto from running for president and deputy president, respectively. We lost that case in the courts. However, the cases at the ICC continued. And what I said at the time, and I think I made this very clear to everyone, that for the kinds of issues that had been raised by the post-election violence and the kinds of charges that have been leveled against Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Ruto, we were talking about crimes against humanity. We are talking about pillage, rape, and murder. Those were serious charges. I said that if, in fact, the cases were concluded in such a way that I was satisfied that justice had been served, that I would recognize this individual, Mr. Kenyatta, as president. The cases were concluded in a way in which I felt justice was denied to the victims. I mean, witnesses recanted, they were intimidated, there were claims of bribery and so on and so forth. So the case never matured. And the case never matured not because there was no evidence, but because, as Ms. Bensouda said, the prosecutor, that Mr. Kenyatta's side had participated in a massive effort to clean up the evidence.
But that's the prosecution saying that. So, okay, so finally, the case was literally, it's been thrown out. It's gone.
Well, the case was withdrawn.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you recognize him now as your president?
Look, I have also said that in addition to the case itself, which was withdrawn, that I had trouble with the way the election was conducted by the IEBC. I am not satisfied. I was not satisfied then. I am not satisfied today that the elections at the presidential level were free and fair.
Why do you say that? What wasn't free and fair?
I think there was, I think it's well documented that the system collapsed, that the roll of voters, the register of voters, could not be verified. I know that the Supreme Court went ahead and ruled that Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Ruto are validly elected. I was not satisfied by that opinion of the Kenyan Supreme Court.
You were not?
I was not satisfied by it. I respect the court, but I was dissatisfied by its opinion. So in my view, I feel that there is a deficit of legitimacy that this regime suffers from. Now, having said that, I want to make it clear that I am not disputing the fact that Mr. Kenyatta is the country's CEO, is the country's chief executive officer. Okay? But for me to utter the words or the word that he is the president would violate my conscience.
Okay, if he walked into this room, if the CEO walked into this room right now,
yes,
and you stood up and you said, "Good to meet you, Mr. President," what would you say?
I would say it's good to see you, Mr. Kenyatta. I would say that.
You refuse to use it.
Look, I mean, I have nothing personal against Mr. Kenyatta. Mr. Kenyatta is actually a very likable man. As I said in the past on one of your shows, I said that when I represented Mr. John Kidongo in the Anglo-leasing matter in London, we spent a couple of days together.
That's right.
In London.
When he was majority leader.
When he was majority leader. We had nice banter, we shared drinks, we shared lunch and so on and so forth. He's a very likable man. The question that I am interested in is whether he was validly elected as the president of this country. And up to this point, I'm not satisfied that he was. And I have my conscience to look to.
Okay.
So in a sense, I mean, when you go to sleep at night, in a sense, you may have a spouse or you may have a partner with you, who may be in bed with you, but you must always sleep with yourself. In other words, your conscience must always be clear.
What's going to clear your conscience about the president?
I think that unless I see evidence that proves otherwise, that shows me that the election was free and fair, and that also answers the questions concerning the ICC cases and how they were terminated, or ended, to convince me that his side had no hand in subverting justice. Unless I see evidence to that effect, I'll remain unconvinced that he is the president, of this country.
Okay, recently you did say you would acknowledge him as president if he arrested his deputy.
So there are things called sins of conception. Sins of conception. I think for Mr. Kenyatta there are two sins of conception. The one is the ICC case. The second is the way the cases were, the ICC cases, number one, and then secondly, the way the election was conducted. Those are two sins of conception which convince me that he should not be president. However, I'm also an individual who believes that there can be redemption. Okay? And I'm willing to look at things that he might do himself to redeem himself, to cure, if you will, those sins of conception. One way that this could happen is for him to execute and prosecute a serious and credible campaign against corruption. Okay. In fact, when he announced this current spate of investigations, where he gave the Parliament the list of shame with great fanfare, I was one of the first people out of the gate to, in effect, congratulate him and say that I supported his campaign against corruption. But subsequently, what has become very clear to me is that the campaign is a lot of smoke and no fire. I mean, how credible is it, Jeff, that Mr. Kenyatta could sit there and suspend or ask for the suspension of various high officials, including cabinet secretaries, and yet his numero dos, his number two, Mr. William Ruto, is mired in scandal and corruption.
But nothing's been proved, Prof. Nothing's been proved. I mean, people say all kinds of things.
But look, Jeff, similarly, nothing has been proven against the people who have been suspended. The four cabinet secretaries, or the five, the 4 or 5 and other senior officials. In the case of Mr. Ruto himself has admitted in a public forum, I think on a TV program, that he owns a hotel which sits on land that was illegally acquired by him or by someone else. If that is not enough admission, of an admission to cause Mr. Kenyatta to distance himself from Mr. Ruto, then I don't know what is. You cannot credibly govern a country when you lack ethics, when you have no integrity, when you are being accused right, left, and center of land grabbing. I mean, there was a case, as you know very well, in Western Kenya of a particular piece of land, I think that belonged to a Mr. Muteshi, in which, by the way, Mr. Ruto was found to have illegally occupied. And I think the court ruled in favor of Mr. Muteshi. So there is, in fact, evidence that he grabbed someone's land in the past.
Okay.
So the point I'm trying to make is that Mr. Kenyatta cannot claim to credibly fight corruption if his number two, is himself mired in corruption.
Okay, but to come back to that television interview that he gave,
yes.
he said he owns part of the hotel that you're talking about. He owns part. He didn't say he's the owner. He has interests in it.
Well, Jeff, you cannot be half pregnant. You're either pregnant or you are not. On matters of corruption, you are either sitting on land or owning a piece of property on land that was illegally acquired, or you are not. Okay, we're not talking about percentages. The fact of this particular hotel, and Mr. Ruto, by the way, if he wants to show us that he owns a very small part of the hotel, let him produce the documentation about how many shares he owns. Let him come forward. But as a leader who every day talks about corruption, he's prancing, all around this country, going from rally to rally, from funeral to event to public event, saying that Jubilee is going to fight corruption. Is he going to fight himself?
I want to take a break, Prof, and talk. When we come back, I want to talk about why you hate these people so much. You hate the man, and when you look on the other side, if you look across the aisle, is CORD any better?
the word hatred is unknown to me. I differ with them.
You dislike?
I call them out.
Okay, just for the record.
I critique them. I don't hate them.
Okay, just for the record, just say
yes.
President Kenyatta, just say it for me. Just for my ear. Just
put down $20,000. Put down $20,000 here.
And you say,
and I'll utter the word.
What word?
In brackets.
What word?
That particular word. In brackets.
I almost got you.
You almost got me.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I'm disciplined, man.
You are.
Ain't gonna happen.
Okay.
Ain't gonna happen.
Okay. Let's keep tweeting at Makau Mutua, at Koinange Jeff. The hashtag we're using tonight is Makau Mutua on JKL. My goodness, this man is on fire. That's why we need to take a break. We'll take a break. Be right back in a moment.